I only have one goal today, and that's to get you to care. To care about space, and to care about what we can do. In the 1960s and 70s, we went to the moon. Went there, and never returned. Since then, our space technology has been on the decline. Yeah, we planted a flag, and that was cool and all, but we had plans for bases. We had plans for colonies. So why don't we have that now? And how are we going to get that? Money is the limiting factor when it comes to space travel. Only large governments can really afford it. That's why we're able to have the space station. At a price tag of $150 billion, there's a reason that only governments go there. During the Cold War and the space race, the government began to really open up its bank account. Reporting to Congress, the whole Apollo program costed around $25.4 billion. However, in today's dollars, that's closer to $100 billion. Now, this rocket, the Saturn V, was a beast, capable of carrying 3 people and a lander to the moon and down to the surface and back safely. We wanted to do more in space, though, so we built the space shuttle. Congress loved it because it looked like an airplane, and the military loved it because its payload bay was big enough to carry the largest satellite we could imagine. However, it had a lot of problems. For starters, the space shuttle could not make it to the moon. It could only achieve a low Earth orbit. Another issue the space shuttle had was cost. See, it had originally been designed to be 100% reusable, but what they found out is that it was only refurbishable, many heat tiles and engine motors needing to be replaced in between each launch. They ended up costing $1.6 billion per launch and had a total price tag of $209 billion in the year 2010. With these costs increasing every year as the vehicles aged, and with 2 disasters that killed 14 people total, turning the spacecraft into the most deadly spacecraft in human history, its program came to an end in 2011 when Atlantis touched down at the Kennedy Space Center for the last time. The space shuttle was a workhorse, though, and accomplished many great missions, including the launching of the Hubble telescope and the building of the International Space Station. However, it's time to move on to bigger and better things. NASA has been developing the Space Launch System. This rocket is bigger than the Apollo rockets, and is the rocket made for the Artemis program, with a plan to permanently return humans to the moon. Originally estimated to cost only $18 million, an updated price figures that this program will cost around $24 billion by the year 2024, when the expected moon landing will take place. The SLS can carry 6 people to the moon, low Earth orbit, or even Mars. This rocket is being built to be a workhorse of the future. But it's not the only one out there. The Russian Soyuz rocket has currently been used by NASA at a price of $70 million per seat to launch astronauts to the space station. It's clear that governments always overcharge on their rockets. This overpricing has led the ability for SpaceX to get into the door. With their Falcon Heavy and Dragon rockets, they have been able to put up competitive prices that beat out most governments with the ability to get to space for cheap. With a price tag of $90 million for the Falcon Heavy and $62 million for a Falcon 9, these rockets have lowered the market and allowed many people to get to space for a lot cheaper than they could have. Cheap travel, though, isn't the only thing that SpaceX is after. They want to go to Mars. And to do that, they've innovated a rocket that has just the capability to get people there and to get back. This is Starship. It's a stainless steel rocket being built in the middle of a field in Texas and in the middle of a swamp in Florida. What you see here before you is only the second stage of the rocket. This second stage will have the ability to carry 100 people to low Earth orbit, anywhere on the planet, the moon, and even Mars. And the best part is, it can return and is 100% reusable. SpaceX also has a little bit more freedom than NASA. After changing their flight design and realizing that it was wrong, they decided that they would still use the vehicle and overpressurize the tanks to see how long they could last. This was the result. It is because of this freedom that SpaceX has the ability to design this rocket to go to Mars. This rocket is expected to cost $5 billion to develop, $300 million to build, and a new estimate, only $2 million to fly once all the R&D is done. With rocket prices this cheap, it's no wonder that their goal is Mars. Yet SpaceX isn't the only commercial person getting in the game. Blue Origin has just finished their new Shepard rocket, which is able to take people to a low Earth orbit for space tours and low science experiments, and they're working on a new Glenn rocket that'll be comparable to Starship in its ability to launch large payloads into deep space. Another rocket that is joining the game is the Electron rocket, built in New Zealand. This one has electro turbopumps that power it. The CEO of Electron was over here at USU over the summer. One of the reasons that these rockets are so cheap, and the reason that they're gaining so much traction, is because they're reusable. The first stage is flown back, cleaned up, and ready to launch again. This is something that nobody else has done before, and no government has ever tried. So where does that put us now? This inscription, made on Earth by humans, is currently sitting on a Tesla Roadster, soaring in between an Earth and Mars orbit. It's somewhat inspired by a quote from Elon Musk. This quote says, "We either live in a reality where humans become a multiplanetary species that spread throughout the galaxy, or we live in one where we die on Earth, either from killing ourselves or through the eventual death of the sun." It's clear that the time of the government rocket is over. Commercial space programs are the only way to go forward. The only question is are we going to be able to fund them and to be able to care about them enough before we run out of time?